Thank you for joining us for another webinar brought to you by the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association. If this is your first time joining us for one of the webinars put forth by the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association, we're delighted to have you. In the last 30 days, we've been ramping up big to learn how to host things like many of you have. We've been a particular fan of Zoom and their webinar platform, and then we've also been taking advantage of Facebook Live. So for those of you who have registered in advance, thank you for joining us on Zoom. For those of you who are coming to us live through Facebook Live, we're so glad that you're here. My name is Becky Ruppert McMahon, and I'm the Chief Executive of the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association. We have been living through unprecedented times in so many different respects that one of the learning grounds for us at the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association has been how to come up to speed very quickly on a variety of different topics, and how to get facts, not fear, not fiction, but real facts out to not only our members, but also the public. And so for those of you who are coming back for more than just your first program, you know that we've been hosting a variety of conversations around how this COVID crisis is impacting various aspects of our lives. Last week, we hosted a conversation about issues that are impacting landlords and tenants. Before that, we hosted a program about online notary. Since people can't get together face-to-face, how do you get documents notarized? What is an online notary and how do you become an online notary? Yesterday, we hosted a program on the intersection of immigration law and what's happening with the COVID stay-at-home orders. So there's lots of relevant programming that's been happening through the Bar Association because we've been able to leverage a number of experts across a variety of topics. Today's conversation brings to the front discussion about home buying. We are focused predominantly on the residential real estate market today. And we've put this program together on quick notice because of demands that we've heard from people within our membership and also the general public. There are lots of questions, lots of concerns about what is or is not happening for home buyers and sellers. And so I'm delighted today to be able to welcome two tremendous subject matter experts, each of whom will bring a different lens and some different thoughts, but also you will quickly see that there is an awful lot of synergy between our speakers today. The first that I'd like to introduce is Lisa Behm. Lisa is joining us from First Federal Savings and Loan of Lakewood. She's been with them since 2017. But she has more than 29 years of lending experience in the mortgage and financial services arena. She really prides herself on being an exceptionally hands-on lender for her customers and throughout the entire mortgage industry. From beginning to end, she's involved to help people understand the process so there are no surprises and no glitches along the way. She enjoys that customer-centric spirit in helping first-time homeowners. She also helps people step up. She helps with investment properties, vacation properties, you name it. Lisa, you're a one-woman dynamo. So Lisa, thank you so much for joining us in today's conversation. She's just nodding. There we go. Great. Thanks, Lisa. Also joining us is somebody who certainly works closely with the lending industry, but is really bringing us the realtor's perspective. Judy Makaryk-Rosen has been a licensed agent since 1996. So she brings almost 25 years of experience and is recognized as one of the top agents in the greater Cleveland area. She has owned her own brokerage and is now with the RE/MAX brand. Prior to being an agent, Judy, we just made this connection yesterday, Judy was the executive director of the Women's City Club in Cleveland. I'm a former member. So she really knows the ins and outs of Cleveland. Her business is based almost exclusively on referrals, and as I learned yesterday, predominantly people, face-to-face referrals, less so than social media, but I talked her into joining our conversation today anyway. Judy has earned the respect of her clients, again, like Lisa, by working tirelessly on their behalf and always delivering candid advice that produces results. As a Cleveland native, she's a seasoned real estate professional who prides herself on not only knowing her work, whether she's representing buyers or sellers. This includes from rehab investment properties to multi-million-dollar homes on all sides of Cleveland. So Judy, let me say welcome to you as well.
Welcome.
Great, thanks. All right, so Lisa, let's start with you. Let's get down to business. I know that there have been lots of impacts to the lending arena, and in particular the residential lending arena, as a result of the COVID environment. Can you tell us what's been happening from your perspective?
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Becky, for having us. Yes, lending has been somewhat of a roller coaster in the last 45 days, you can say. During the beginning of March, mortgage interest rates hit historical lows, which increased applications and really flooded most of our pipelines. The Mortgage Bankers Association reported on March 11th that mortgage applications increased 55.4% from the week prior. And to top off that, lenders started deploying all of their employees out to their homes. So that just added to the roller coaster ride that we were already going down with the interest rates.
Can you give us a description, Lisa? Give us some sense of how things have been changing in the last 30 days as we moved into this remote universe.
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges has been using the technology that we've all really been reluctant to embrace. I didn't know anything about Zoom until a month ago, and since then I've had a couple birthday parties, I've had some family gatherings and work meetings. However, more importantly, we've been taking applications through our websites, using the technology that's in front of us. In some cases, this process can limit some of the supporting documentation that you need to provide up front, which then will in turn increase the speed of the loan transaction.
So I know that there's been a tremendous sort of, it's like undertaking a militarily precise effort to get people deployed. Can you talk a little bit about how First Federal has managed this, and in particular, again, in the res lending arena?
Absolutely. You know, at First Federal, we do or have done a very good job of actually preparing ourselves for a pandemic episode. We did training every year. We do a training kind of going through what we would do. Never thought we would ever have to worry about it, but here we are. You know, some of the conversations we had in our trial runs were technology. Do we have workspaces at home? How will this look when it comes to processing a loan? We have all different departments that handle a transaction, from upfront lending to loan assistance, to processing, underwriting, closing. All these departments had to be deployed. I'm very proud of First Federal and what we did. We moved quickly, swiftly, and really, you know, there was very small downtime when it came to deploying the team out.
So as you've made this move into the virtual environment, has the process for approving or reviewing loans changed at all?
The process itself hasn't changed, but some of the guidelines have, as our investors have really set different rules for us. Our investors, mostly Fannie Mae, Freddie, FHA, VA, USDA, they set the precedent as to the guidelines that we follow. Obviously, with the changes that COVID-19 has brought to us, verification of employment, people losing their jobs, there has been some added steps that we have taken by the guidance of our investors that we have to follow. Some of that may delay the process a little bit, but really the technology has been on our side. A lot of the systems that we use are all electronic, so we've been able to swiftly move through the process and get to the end so that the borrowers can buy their homes and or refinance the loans that they were looking to do initially.
So are you having much in the way of conversation with folks who are being impacted? We've heard about salons that are being closed, restaurants and bars that are closing or going to takeout only. We've heard about lots of furloughs and layoffs and position eliminations. Are you hearing from a lot of folks who are having trouble making their mortgage payments? And if so, what are you telling them, and how are you helping them work through this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's kind of a twofold question. One is the process of working with a borrower during the loan process, either a refinance or a purchase. The loan officers are having very personal and detailed questions with our borrowers. Is there a possibility that you could be losing your job? have you had any reduced hours? Because that can affect us as well. That is one way, and we try to get the borrowers to the finish line as quickly as we can, because that's very important as well. And I'm sure Judy can talk to how that affects her on the purchase side. But on the side of borrowers who are having challenges, a lot of borrowers are having challenges. We have had a fallout of borrowers, either in the refinance or the purchase. But then we also have the borrowers who unfortunately have lost their jobs and need assistance during this time. We refer our clients, as do most lenders, to the website so that they can swiftly request the forbearance so that we can help them through these tough times. But I would actually hand it over to Judy to kind of talk about what she has in the way of conversations with her buyers and or sellers during this process.
How did you know I was going there, Lisa? That's
Right.
a perfect transition. Okay, Judy, let's switch it over to you.
Well, I think from a lending perspective, the first question that I ask someone is your job stable? Do you think do you have any concerns at all about potentially being laid off or losing this job? Because I don't want to smash their hopes and dreams when in reality, the week before closing, Lisa is going to go ahead and check their employment status, and then we can't get a loan through. So from a buyer's perspective, it's actually made it even more efficient. The people who are out there buying are very serious and they are ready to buy, and they're not as wishy-washy about the decision of what they're doing.
So Judy, is there actually inventory on the market at this point? I know, you know, I was somebody who a year ago, I was hot on the hunt for a new house, and I was going to open houses every weekend, and I was scouring the listings, and there was a lot of inventory, although it often went very quickly. But I'm guessing things are very different today.
Well, it's a very interesting year, and I just in fact pulled the stats on the inventory in the marketplace. So people are so confused that it's a seller's market and that people are buying, and how could we have such an environment of multiple offers when we're in the midst of COVID? And I have not stopped in my season. I've been very busy and it's critically active. And almost every offer that I'm presenting, I'm going into a multiple offer status. So what I did this morning to help everybody understand how this actually comes down to the data, last year at this point in the market, in March, so think about it, these are sellers that were planning to put their home on the market in January, February, all pre-COVID. So these homes that we had on the market last March were 3,623. Currently, we have on the market 2,864. So we almost have 1,000 less homes on the market with the same amount of buyers. But add to that, let's look at our closings. Last March, we had 991 homes closed. So once again, that data comes from a contract that went under play in February. So once again, doesn't affect COVID. So that would be 991 closed at the end of March in 19. We had 1,133 closings at the end of March. So less inventory and more closings. We were gearing up to having another amazing year, and we need homes. So anybody out there, just please list your home. We need the inventory. The buyers are ready and able to perform. And there still are enough people that are gainfully employed that you shouldn't have a concern.
Okay, so let's talk about that in a little more practical detail then, Judy. So if I'm looking to list my house, one of the typical ways that we get started is by contracting with a realtor like you or somebody else. You come in, you take pictures, we create a web-based listing, and then open houses are typically pretty common. I would assume that you're not doing open houses right now, is that right?
No, we're not doing open houses. And I think that there's an important step that a lot of people are missing, and they'll miss the market and in any season too, is I have 5 listings that I'm working on right now to go on the market. And because the market's so competitive and they want to be the house that the buyers are picking, they're spending a lot more time preparing their homes and making sure that they're perfect. So don't just think just because we have low inventory that you're going to just sell your home and leave everything out like the old days. You need to be pristine, you need to be prepared, and you need to have as much data to paper, because then we go in and we hire a professional photographer. And we also bring in the virtual tour concept, or we bring in videos so that we can minimize the number of people that are actually going through homes. If it's a sensitive issue, and all depending upon the individual, if they're comfortable or not. But I think that's an important point. Open houses, they're in, at least for my personal team, we're not doing open houses. And it's pretty much been an industry opinion that we should avoid open houses. Another practice is when the house is being shown, it's a very specific time, and it's a very only one couple at a time. In a normal marketplace, sure, you could have a couple realtors in with their buyers and at the same time, but we're avoiding that. And also some specific systems we've put into place. I have been meeting buyers. I have a box of plastic gloves. I present the box of plastic gloves. They know the routine, put those on, put booties on potentially in a house. And the sellers will have all the doors open that would need to be open. All the lights will be on. And it's please don't touch anything if you can avoid it, because we don't want to endanger anybody during the process. So it's changed, but I believe that we're safe. And obviously if people want to wear masks, that is another thing that's strongly encouraged.
So if somebody moves forward on this process of getting a house listed and they are lucky enough to get an offer or multiple offers, once an offer has been accepted, 2 things typically happen, among others. One is there are inspections that get conducted. The other is there's an appraisal that the bank, whoever is providing the mortgage, is going to want to conduct. So Judy and Lisa, can you help us understand, in this COVID environment, how are property inspections being handled? Are they still in person? And what about the appraisals on the lender side?
Well, from the inspections, in fact, I'm going to an inspection today to a buyer that purchased a home that isn't via FaceTime. So that's something we could talk about too. But the appraisers, the inspectors are actually asking that the buyers aren't present so that we have one less person, because we're going to provide them a report. We still do keep our industry standard that I'll be attending the inspection. I've already told the agent I will stay in one room, I'll be at this table, so if they, for proper cleanup, etc., afterwards and disinfecting, they know where I've been. But that's just our responsibility as an agent, is to be with the inspector at the time. As for the appraisals, it's been really interesting. Some of the lenders are actually waiving the appraisal requirement because they have enough data in the system. Yet I had a client who, the lender on a $500,000 home said, it's okay, we're going to just waive the inspection, the appraisal requirement, but she wanted the appraisal because she wanted to have the full data report, and the lenders are actually waiving the cost to the buyers too. But because the appraiser went into an occupied home, they did charge the buyer an additional $100. So that's another difference that's going on in the marketplace that makes it a little bit different.
Lisa, is that what you're seeing at First Federal Lakewood in terms of the appraisal side?
Yeah, so again, I'm looking at it from 2 angles. One would be a refinance and one would be a purchase. On our refinances, again, if we talk about our agency-owned loans, or Fannie, Freddie, FHA, and Govy loans, those agencies already have data in most cases on these properties. So when we put it back through the system to reduce an interest rate or to reduce a term, each one of our agencies do have their own process of determining value. So to Judy's point, there are cases where the approval will come up where we can waive it or have a reduced inspection. So a typical appraisal would include an exterior and interior report. That would include almost 30 pages of information about the property, also with interior photos. So in some cases, we are doing a reduced report, okay? So we are still getting the exterior photos. We are still pulling the comparables in the area that compares square footage, quality of the property. The only part that we are basically allowing not to show up in the report is the interior photos. All right, so we're still doing and having the due diligence of the property. To Judy's point, there are cases, however, let's say on a sale of a property where a homeowner had done or had performed home improvement, new kitchen, new bathroom, finished basement. A lot of that may not show up from previous reports, and it may not be able to support a value. So like Judy said, there may be those one-off cases where a full report, including interior photos, would be beneficial for the seller and the buyer.
Great. So let me just take a pause here and say we've started to get some questions in. I want to remind everybody that if you've got questions about anything associated with our conversation today, whether it's involving the lending side of the house or the realty side, we would welcome you to submit your questions. For those that are joining us through Zoom, there's a Q&A feature that you can use to type up and submit your question so that we can share it with our panelists. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, we also encourage you to post questions in the comments. We've got folks monitoring that, and we will also be able to drive those questions to our panels. So one of the questions that we got is, you mentioned refinancing. So Lisa, is this a good time to be thinking about refinancing? And if so, the question came from somebody who purchased a home, I guess, about 1.5 years ago. How much of a difference in the interest rate should they be looking for before they consider refinancing?
So refinancing is its own animal. So every borrower, every situation is different. There are some borrowers who put a significant amount of down payment. They have plenty of equity, and the equity position moving forward would benefit them to refinance. Some people maybe put not as much down. They used a lower down payment, maybe a 3 to 5% down payment. So depending on each person's situation will depend on whether it makes sense. This is very important to get with a licensed originator so that you can run through all these scenarios. In the big picture, interest rates are at historical lows. I honestly didn't think we'd get back down here again, but here we are. And that is, so many people are taking advantage of either reducing their term from a 30 to a 15 year and getting that house paid off, or looking at some home improvement. It's still a good time, because interest rates are so low, to kind of look into your future to see where you would want to be positioned long-term for your mortgage. So yes, it is a good time to refinance.
Great. And then Judy, to you, I got a question from somebody who says you talked about people spending a little more time now than typical in terms of getting their homes near perfect before they put them on their market. Somebody's asking a question, as they think about sort of how their home will best photograph. Are there some tips that you have in terms of do's and don'ts, whether it's decluttering the house, whether it's depersonalizing, any of those tips?
Well, part of my personal process is I have what I call my personal bad cop, because when I meet with a client and I go through the house, I wish I could show you a wonderful before and after that I went into a house recently, and it looked like a terroristic storm hit it with their 3 children. And decluttering is a critical factor, but what I did is I have a stager that I work with. For every client that I work with, I have them help them with paint colors, with arranging the furniture is a critical factor, definitely clearing of countertops and things like that. But her husband's has an immune system problem. She did it all through FaceTime. And I competed with another realtor who's actually going to be showing the property. And she said, Judy, did you use the old photos on when the house sold the last time, it looks amazing. And I said, no, the clients got it all done with the help of my bad cop, Margie. So if you can work with a realtor that, like myself, who I always use a stager and I pay for that for them, and this way it helps me with my job. And I don't have to be the person that says, do this, you know, get rid of that, get rid of this, declutter. So it really is critical. And professional photography, because sometimes I find it comical when I find a jacket on a chair in a dining room or papers on a countertop and things like that. It distracts the buyers, and they're literally just going from those photos, like the client I just recently sold a home to via FaceTime. And you need to look pristine and perfect, because they may not actually be entering their home until they get the keys.
Lisa, I got another question for you. This is from someone who is just at the very beginning stages of looking to purchase a home, and wanted to circle back on the remarks that you made about having conversations with your lender or prospective lender if you think that your job may be in jeopardy. The question is really, at what point should you be having that conversation? If you really don't know what's going to happen in June, should you be raising a red flag with the lender? Will that cause a lender to not want to do business with you? Can you talk a little bit more about when and how prospective buyers should be having that conversation?
No, absolutely. And you should be having those conversations from the get-go. You know, all of us are in a situation where you just never know what tomorrow's going to bring, right? So talking about the scenarios is really just having honesty with what the picture could look like. For example, you know, maybe when you're running through the numbers, maybe you have a 2-income household. Maybe the conversation needs to be, what if one of you has reduced income or will lose income? What does that look like as a household? Could you buy a home with one person's income? Those are real conversations. So maybe instead of going for the top of your purchase price, maybe you go a little bit more conservative with the possibility that you would have reduced income. So again, that's a conversation at the end of the day between the borrowers, but talking about what a payment would look like and what a borrower could afford off of one household income really is a good topic of conversation to have.
Great, and I've got a follow-up question then. What about existing borrowers? So if an existing borrower of your bank is finding that there are issues with his or her employment, are you aware, are there any programs in place now to help borrowers who may be displaced make those future mortgage payments?
So that's a really good question. And I know that we've had both questions posed to us. For example, a borrower is unable to make their payments, needs to reach out to the person who they're making the payments to. That's the servicer of their mortgage. Most of the institutions have been given guidance by the investors how to have a forbearance or to help you during this time. Now, long term, if you are out of work right now, you would not be able to get a loan because you wouldn't have the income coming in. So work with your current servicer to get you through this time. The servicers are really looking at big picture. They're helping out, and then they want to continue to work with borrowers who are unable to make their payments. We don't need to go back to where we were in 2008, 2009. I think we've learned from our mistakes, and we all want everybody to get back up on our feet and get through this. Once borrowers are back up on their feet and they're able to make their payments, maybe that's the time that you look at a refinance if that is the best situation for you.
Great. So we talked about some of these changes that have been implemented as a result of the COVID situation, including, Judy, you were talking about the use of FaceTime and some virtual tools. Do you think these are tools that may be here for the long run to stay, even when we go back into a new normal?
Yes, I think that actually looking for homes may become even a bit more efficient. I personally sold a home to a military family that's relocating here in June, and I showed them the house via FaceTime, walked them through it, and did everything that was needed via FaceTime. And we're also adding virtual tours, which are either there's a Matterport brand or there's a Ricoh is another camera, but there's different cameras that can give you the complete floor plan of the house, etc. And the only thing about, I don't think that it's going to be a complete transference to this type of showings because of the fact that so many times I'll show a house, sometimes positive, sometimes negatives, where they'll say, oh, the house looks a lot different than what the photos did, even when you have a professional photographer. So I really don't think it's going to change. I think that there's just a lot more efficiency.
What do you think, Lisa? Have there been some changes that have come into play that may continue for the long term?
Yes, and I think there are changes that we've all been kind of trying to push off, meaning the technology. Really, you know, the technology has been here for us. I think it's really, as human nature, been us to resist the technology. I think in the last month, we have all had to embrace very quickly the ability to log into your bank and, you know, pull documents through the internet, through the online services, through your employers to verify, you know, income. Really, there's no need to go back, honestly, to some of our paper ways. I think technology is our friend. Our technology is here to stay, and we need to embrace it. You know, from the lending point of view, we really are trying to gather all of the documentation from our borrowers right up front in the first couple days, because there's no reason to wait for any of it. You know, we are really trying to streamline the process, and we really want to be ahead of our peers as far as from start to finish being the fast one and fastest lender in town.
Great. All right, I've got two more questions. So let's stick with you, Lisa. A follow-up question regarding refinancing. The question is, it looks like it's a good time because interest rates continue to be very low and competitive. Is refinancing, is it an easy process compared to the original home buying process? Somebody who's never been through that process before, I think they're looking for some insights.
Yeah. So just like we mentioned earlier, some of the steps that we go through in a refinance actually can be streamlined, especially if there was an appraisal done or the investor already has a good feeling for the value of the home. That's one of the steps in a refinance that can take a little bit of time. As far as the process, it really is a seamless process. The biggest part is getting everything that we need up front timely so that we can get it through our departments and get it to the end. You know, even if rates when the rates creep up, which they will, it still makes sense to refinance. Everybody's loan situation is different. Again, you may be looking at home improvement, debt consolidation, lowering a term from a 30 to a 15. And let's not forget about all those adjustable rate mortgages out there that when the market starts turning, you know, they may want a fixed rate. So at any given time, you should be reaching out to a licensed loan officer really to you know, evaluate your personal situation.
Okay, Judy, I've got two for you. The first one is, apparently there's a first-time home buyer who's in the audience, somebody who's a young professional who's been renting and is thinking that it's time to actually invest in the purchase of their first home sometime later this year. And the question is are there some hot markets within Cleveland where a first-time home buyer, A, can break into the market, but B, also get a good return on their investment if the thought is 5 to 10 years from now, they may sell and move on to house number 2?
I think that's a great question. There are a lot of homes that you can find that are of value. Just be prepared to do some work. So what you want to do is you want to look at the homes that have been on the market for a while that aren't the hot houses and buy them in the hot markets. Lakewood is reputed to be one of the hottest markets in the area right now, and it's very, very high demand, etc. Any of the districts that have highly rated schools, east, west, are all the areas that people are always going to continue to look for. I'm a relocation expert, and so that's the question that I receive is buyers want to know when it's time for them to sell the house, that it's going to be in demand. So if you are willing to do the grunt work of renovating a house and taking down wall covering or creating your own dream kitchen, you can definitely do well and make a profit. I have a couple who just sold their home with me. They bought it a couple years ago in Strongsville. They bought it for $295 2 years ago. And we just went under contract in a multiple offer for $325. So that's a pretty good gain considering they really didn't do a lot to the property in a couple years. But it also is, it's packaging. It's how they prepped their home, how they showed it, and the information that they gave the buyers, et cetera. So you have to not be too greedy. Price your home right. That is really critical because buyers really know value.
And so Lisa, then for our first-time home buyer, if they take Judy's great advice and they really think about moving forward, are there opportunities through First Federal Lakewood for a first-time home buyer to learn how this process works, and or are there any specials that relate to first-time home buyers?
Yes, so there are definitely first-time homebuyer programs. So most of those usually mean that we are going to limit the down payment or out-of-pocket to get into the loan. To Judy's point, you know, we would like you to hold on to your savings so that you can have it as a reserve in case things come up, or if you want to do any home improvement. In addition to that, there are some rehabilitation loans or renovation loans. You have to be prepared. Talking to your agent is very, very important. I see Judy kind of chuckling because you have to be prepared not only to buy a home, understand what work you need to have done, have a contractor ready, and know the scope of work. I know we've all watched HGTV and we all would love to just tear out a kitchen and it's easy, but it's a lot of work, right? And you know, you have to have all of your contractors lined up and really know all the costs. But when you have that, when you have the right loan, your right agent, and your contractors, it's a beautiful program because to Judy's point, you can find that diamond in the rough in the neighborhood that you want, that nobody's been buying or everybody's been looking over because it just has, you know, it's just dated. So definitely a good point to, you know, kind of look at the big picture and what you can make that home into.
So I would just love to say that I am available for any of those demos. I've always thought it would be fun to be the person with that big sledgehammer in my hands and ready to rip out those counters or those cabinets or whatever. But I'm guessing pretty quickly I would get in over my head. And so Judy, I will take your advice. It's not as easy as it looks on TV.
No, it is not.
So listen, as we look forward and whether it's in May or June, as we start to see things slowly get back to a life in a more normal environment, as people start to get out of their homes, and again, we'll have to wait and see really what the guidance is from our Department of Health and our governor. But as things begin to return to normal and the quarantine begins to recede, are you expecting that there will be a huge rush to the market and maybe what is typically just a huge spring crush, we may see a late summer or a fall pickup in terms of inventory, Judy?
I think that we are going to have an amazing demand come upon us because usually our market cycle, it starts pretty much 1st of March and then at the end of June. July is tapered and August is dead. Because of the fact that people who maybe wanted to move from their homes for schools or just for whatever reason, we are all prepared that the market is going to be delayed and it is going to be big just because of the closings we've already seen through the statistics I mentioned earlier. So I think it's a great year to get out there and buy a home. And definitely, if you have anybody in the audience is thinking about selling it all, please put your home on the market this year. You will really do well as long as you've got it ready to go and you price it right.
So as people are at home and they're thinking about following your advice, Judy, do you or Lisa have suggestions about good resources that are available on the internet that people can go to help sort of educate themselves as they begin to take on this process?
Honestly, I think that our society has become very internet based and where they get their data. I think the most important thing I could say is, at least from the lending end, definitely work with Lisa, get yourself pre-approved, but work with a realtor. There is nothing like the personal hands-on opinion of meeting with someone and having an expert see your home firsthand, and also bringing in a real stager that does this on a regular basis, but hire a realtor. You know, that's the reason my profession has its place, and you can't just go read up on it, know everything. Those resources are not always accurate, and I think that a realtor is going to give you a better opinion in person.
Lisa, what about you? Do you have some good recommendations for somebody who's looking to better educate themselves before they jump in with both feet?
No, absolutely. There are a lot of nonprofits in the community that do offer home buying education. There are some online courses that we work with our servicers, our investors, that have good resources. But at the end of the day, like Judy said, I think the best way is to shop who you're going to work with, your realtor, your loan officer. You want to have a good rapport. You want to know that that person is there to work for you. You know, if you work second shift, or you need to be able to talk to someone late at night or on the weekend, you've got to know that your team is together and they're there for you. So really getting to know who you're working with, and feeling comfortable with that person, to me is really, really important. And that they have the knowledge of the programs that you want, like first-time home buyer programs or renovation loans. The state of Ohio has grants out there for down payment assistance. Know what you ask all the right questions so you know what you need and that you're with the right person.
So one of the ways that I can tell that the two of you combined have a tremendous amount of experience in this area is that you both seem very optimistic about the business of residential lending and home buying and selling continuing to move forward in 2020. There's been a lot of negative news. There's awful lot of fear about what's happening in the economy, but I'm interested that both of you appear to be very optimistic about seeing our market continue and to continue to do well. You've been through tough downturns in different markets and the financial arena at different times. I'm curious about your individual reflections about what you're seeing and what's making you feel so optimistic and encouraging people to continue to get in the game.
I'll go ahead and start. And I have had so many people send me articles about, oh, the news is bad and the real estate's going to be falling apart and people are going to be losing their houses. Well, Lisa and I talk about this all the time. I have not stopped being busy. My personal firsthand experience, which I'm in the field, I'm on the front line. What is happening in the market? People are listing homes, people are buying homes, there are multiple offers in place. I'm in the reality. I'm not in a news article or I'm not in a statistic. I'm in the real statistics of buying and selling, and it's the pulse speed of the system. In August, I always can feel it. It's closing down, people are on vacation, that's another story. I'll tell you, August is usually dead. But when the rhythm is hot, and the rhythm is still hot, and staying optimistic isn't a game. I wrote 3 contracts this week and I have 3 more closings in escrow just for this month. So if we're having a bad reaction, I think it's to make the clients and the world out there a little bit let's do the gloom and doom. I'm not a believer in gloom and doom because it's not real. So
I want to add to that, the real estate market is resilient. When I got into the industry in the early 90s, we were coming out of double-digit interest rates, right? My first house I thought I was stealing the money at 8.5%. I was so excited. So when we look at where we're at, we're going to make it through this. Everybody needs a roof over their head, all right, whether it's renting or whether it's buying. Of course, we want people to be homeowners because that's just the American dream. But at the end of the day, we're all going to make it through this. And, you know, Judy and I are here to help any homeowner through the process. But we'll get through it. We'll be good.
So I love the optimism. I share it with you, which is why at the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association, we have continued to charge forward as well. There are difficult times for sure that we are dealing with, and probably some more yet to come. But I agree with both of you. It's good for us to continue to look on the horizon for what comes next, and how, notwithstanding these challenges, there's real opportunity for innovation and for opportunity into the future. So listen, before we wrap up, I would love if each of you could share what's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you. If they're interested, Lisa, in learning more about the lending opportunities that exist at First Federal Lakewood, how can they get a hold of you?
Yes, please go to our website at ffl.net. You can search originators. I'm out there. We have a great team of people from the west side to the east side, all the way up to Ashtabula and down to Tuscarora County. So please, you know, Columbus, we are everywhere. So look for your closest originator, but our website is probably our best way to get a hold of us.
Great. And Judy, how about you?
Well, my name is very simple. Not really, but if you just take my name and you will find me, you can Google me and you'll get connected to my contact information, my phone number. I can give it to you. That's very simple, but just look my name up on the internet and it'll get you connected.
Great. Well, listen, let me offer my thanks to both of you. Lisa and Judy, you've been a tremendous source of not only information, but also inspiration. We've answered a lot of great questions, and I will remind folks that this will be available for replay both on Facebook and also on the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association's YouTube channel. We are taking requests from the audience in terms of future programming. If there are other topics that you would like to see us cover, we have additional programs that are coming up later this week. One that's with our friends at Veritext, which is looking at the world of electronic and virtual deposition and other litigation strategies. We also have a program coming up on Thursday for law students, which will be the fourth installment of a series of law school student conversations. And then we'll also be wrapping up the end of this week with leadership. Looking out for our leaders in our community and in our businesses. We know that this has been an emotionally taxing, not to mention physically taxing time as we've all adjusted to a new world. So we're going to be giving some opportunities for leaders to recharge themselves and think about how to reboot their energy and their commitment as they head forward into what the next weeks and months will bring for us. All of the current information about what's available can be found on the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association's Facebook page. You can also join us on our website, which is clemetrobar.org, where you'll find our full calendar of available events. And you can also reach out to me at any time. I'm available by email at rmcmahon, that's RMC, how do I spell my name? Let me try again, RMCMAHON at clemetrobar.org. Thanks everybody for joining us. And again, Judy, thank you. So appreciate it. And Lisa, keep up the great work at First Federal Lakewood. I look forward to seeing you all again in person sometime soon. Take care.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Thanks again.
Thanks.